Hello and welcome back to yet another episode of SafeTay Talks, where we are cultivating a safer fleet industry through collaboration, technology, and great conversations. I'm very excited today. I am joined by Adam Ben Jacob of One Step GPS. Adam, thank you so much for joining. One Step is actually one of our newer but very exciting partners in the fleet management solutions space. Everyone from small business to companies in different continents. So, very excited to hear a little bit more about your background and, of course, all the amazing things to come from the partnership with One Step GPS and Whip Around.
Yeah, so we have had tremendous growth since I've been here. We went from one customer to over 21,000. We've been on the Inc. 5,000 list 5 times, and we have something like 50 to 75 integrations now. And Whip Around is one of them that we're very excited about. And it's been a lot of fun to be here with the company.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds like you guys have had a lot of growth very quickly. Obviously, you're solving a lot of problems for folks out there in the fleet management space. Can you tell me a little bit about some of the biggest problems that you guys are really aiming to solve for in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the problems that we handle are where the vehicle is, what they're doing, if they're where they're supposed to be, if they're driving safely. So you're able to find out, if they're driving erratically, speeding over the speed limit. Um, those are a couple things also for theft and recovery. If someone steals a vehicle, the amount of stories that we have where, vehicles stolen and someone recovers it. We had one guy where before GPS trackers, it took him a month to recover the vehicle. And then after the GPS tracker, he recovered it the same day. Another person, we were on the phone with the police and we were able to help them follow the vehicle and they recovered it within 30 minutes. So that's on theft. And then obviously on safety, that's a big one because the safer your fleet is, the less accidents you have, which means lower insurance rates, which means that your bottom line is improved. And then obviously where your people are. That one I would say is probably the biggest one because sometimes, you're calling someone, they don't answer, they're not where they're supposed to be. You want to find out why with the GPS. You just pull it up and you're like, oh, look at that. Maybe they're with the customer or maybe something else. I mean, we had one guy in the trades business who was fishing over the weekend and he pulled up his app to show his buddy and he's like, "Oh, my vehicles are moving. They shouldn't be moving." So he called his foreman and his foreman was, "Yeah, no, we don't have any work today." And come to find out he had two of his employees going and doing side jobs for cash for people
Wow.
and they were using the company materials and just all of that. So, he was losing out on the vehicle, losing out on the materials and the business. And, if he didn't have the trackers and he didn't happen to be fishing and showing his buddy, he would have never known. But because he did, he was able to find that. And it's just like the stories are crazy. We had another one where the foreman was taking the employees to his own personal jobs. And they're like, why are our jobs not getting completed? Why are they not getting completed? And it's because his employees weren't even there. They were paying the hourly for his foreman to do his own jobs. So,
Oh, wow. I'll be honest, these are scenarios I've never really thought about.
yeah,
We always talk about, hey, how do we, cut costs and get better uptime? And you never really think about the fact, well, okay, there goes your cost because you're getting materials used for jobs that you're not even benefiting from. And you have
yeah.
to think about it too. I mean, gosh, that's, extra mileage on a vehicle, God forbid there's any other damage that happens. That's pretty risky. I think I'd be too much of a scaredy cat to try to pull that off, so I don't know if I commend them for their bravery or wanna give them a slap on the wrist for pulling that move.
Right. When I first started, there's actually a story about a guy in Australia who, like, fooled his GPS trackers so the company didn't know where they were. And he spent 6 months golfing before the company figured out he wasn't working. And I was like, I've never heard of this. This is crazy. And then you hear articles like this, and you're like, I guess it's possible. People actually do this. And then just whatever, the stories come in, you're just like, wow, really? Okay. And so we solved that.
Yeah. Well, gosh, I mean, you think about, some of the more mainstream things that you guys are clearly solving for. So obviously there's so much that you're doing in this space. Obviously with my little SafeTay hat on, I always get really excited about the different, safety features. And I did see that you guys have like unsafe driver monitoring and, safety cards that are automated. I wanted to ask you a little bit how that works.
Yeah, sure. So within our system, we obviously surface the data every time someone brakes on the car too quickly or is going over the speed limit or speeding. It all goes into our system so you can see it, but then we also have a report and it will give you, who's your best drivers, how many miles did they drive, how many of these safety events did they have. Then obviously that impacts their scores, and so you can see who your best drivers are, who your worst drivers are, what they did, where they did, and then obviously you could address it. And then the goal is obviously to improve the safety and improve the quality of the drivers and make sure they're not doing that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the things I was excited for from an integration standpoint because obviously ours is focusing more on the driver inspection time and, are they properly
Mhm.
making sure that the vehicles themselves are safe? And that's why I love folks that use both of us can now look at, the one step GPS side of things and say, okay, are drivers behaving safely for them to move a vehicle, regardless of the condition of the vehicle, from the inspection side of things. It almost gives like that full, umbrella of safety from a driver perspective and really be able to dial in on, who needs a nice cookie at the end of the week for doing a great job and, who maybe needs some additional training.
Absolutely. And then one thing too, just thinking about this, but with the two solutions, like we'll surface check engine codes or DTC codes. So those will go into your system. So you don't have to wait for a driver to say, hey, there's a check engine light, or, drive the vehicle and be like, oh, now it's making a noise. Maybe I should go get it checked out. But the engine light was on 2 months before that. So it's also helpful.
Yes. Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard, kind of similar to your stories where maybe folks are driving where they're not supposed to. I've definitely heard of folks that have certain lights on or they keep hearing a clicking noise, but the vehicle's still moving. They're like, yeah, probably not that big a deal. I'm just gonna keep going on my day to day. If it breaks down, it's not my truck. I've unfortunately heard that before, which, you'd think if you're operating that vehicle, you think, oh, that's my baby, but that's not always the case. So I
Yeah.
think getting those early and then also being able to see them in one spot. So all of the defects, whether it's driver reported or from, your fault codes are all right in one place. So from an operational standpoint, it just makes it so much easier to, say, hey, what are we working on this week? What do we need to prioritize from a maintenance standpoint? It really just feeds into that, cutting down downtime and making sure that costs aren't going in the wrong places.
Absolutely.
With you guys being in, such an oversaturated space, what are some of the great things that really differentiate one step GPS from the other folks that are out there?
Yeah, so there's a couple things. One of the big ones that we keep on hearing about is just the level of service. So we lifetime warranty all the devices, which is just a huge difference. We don't have contracts. And the whole premise of that is we want you to be in love with our system, to find value in it, for it to be great for you so that you don't go, yeah, maybe I want to change because something's not working. It's like, no, we have to fix it. And obviously we're great at that. And so we keep customers for a long time, but it keeps us on our toes, keeps us from kind of becoming comfortable or relaxed, and it just makes that interaction with us better. When you call us, you can call us phone, chat, you can contact us by phone, chat, email. We'll answer, and we just have something like 3,000 or almost 4,000 5-star reviews, which is just a testament to how awesome we are, and then obviously the speed of growth and the number of customers we have.
Yeah, I will say, I mean, obviously besides, the features that you guys offer just working so great well with we do and just creating such a perfect ecosystem. I think one of the things that got us really excited about partnering with you all was, we always look for other folks that have that, kind of integrity behind the business, right? I think as some companies really start to see quick growth, they almost are more focused on the growth and lose sight of the customer. So we are always look for folks to partner with that haven't lost sight of that no matter how much growth they've had. So, again, I mean, I've seen how many reviews you guys have on the great support that you offer. I feel like you're very transparent just between your pricings. You're not locking people into crazy contracts and then boosting their price, months later. So I think,
Yeah.
as I mentioned earlier, you guys work with fleets of all sizes, but, for folks that are just getting into this space, maybe they're a little bit smaller and almost intimidated about, what kind of technology they need or how to really operate better and who to partner with. I mean, you guys are like a godsend, I think, for folks in that bucket, just because they know exactly what they're getting. They're going to get their hand held through all of it, because not everybody's going from one provider to another. I'm sure for a lot of folks, you're their first provider and, their first step really into growing their own business, which I'm sure is amazing for you guys.
Absolutely. And you kind of touched on something too, but that I forgot to even mention, but our pricing. I mean, compared to our competitors are here where we're here. So it's like we're affordable. We don't have contracts. Your equipment's basically guaranteed to work forever, and we're awesome to deal with. I mean, it's crazy. I had one guy that I talked to about 2 weeks ago, and he said that in his 5 years of business, he's changed almost every single piece of software in his company except for us, and we were the best decision he made. So I was like, "Oh, that's very nice." But it was crazy cool to hear that. It's what we do, and it's a very cool thing to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely quite the testimonial. So very
Yeah.
cool. Now, I guess, you've told some, kind of the crazier stories you've heard earlier. Any other stories where you've heard of other folks coming on and just really seeing that aha moment for them, whether it be they're noticing reduced risk and safety, or, they're noticing that they're able to, track fuel or cost better. What are some of those instances for you guys?
Yeah, so there's plenty of stories. So we had one guy who called us after, I think, month 2. And he was like, "Hey, if you ever need any testimonial from any company, just have them call me." And we're like, "Why?" And he said basically that he saved $20,000 in the first month on excess fuel spend, on overtime, because people now were getting back to the office on time and not dilly-dallying or whatever you would say. And it blew his mind how much he could actually save. And it was with I wanna say 30 trucks. So it was small, but it was big savings. And then we had another customer that just by watching the idle time shaved $200,000 off of their fuel purchases in a year, just because they were able to say, "Hey, you're not supposed to be idling vehicles for a long time, turn it off." And so that's another one. And then
Massive.
absolutely. And then we had another one in the Northeast where the customer called us and was like, "Hey, we had 2 of our" like, we had someone call and say, "Hey, your vehicles just drove by me. It seems like they were racing, driving aggressively, um, and they didn't know where," like, they knew roughly what time and where they were, and we were able to find the 2 vehicles, and you could see them going like 80, 90 miles an hour on the freeway, like, overlapping each other. And obviously, you can then figure out who that driver is and then take corrective actions. But um, I mean, there's people that use the scorecards and they'll like you'll have a score like 77% when you started, and now they're at 90% because they've improved through more like positive coaching,
Mhm.
not necessarily focusing on like, "Hey, you're not supposed to drive like this, you're bad," but instead they go like, "Hey, here's our good drivers. Look at this. You drove 2,000 miles without any speeding incidents. Here's a gift card." And just by increasing their score by 20%, it's massive on what it can do. I mean, we had another customer, forgive me if I'm going on, but we had another customer where they basically were told, "You will not be able to get insurance if you have another accident." And they put in GPS and they were able to find out who the unsafe drivers were, why they were unsafe. And like usually the people that are driving unsafe are the guys that are more likely to have accidents. And so you can actually do causative things to prevent that type of thing from happening. And it's as simple as just putting a GPS in there, figuring out who's driving unsafe, stopping that. It could be as simple as they're just on their phone all the time. And so they wake up and realize that there's a car in front of them and slam on the brakes. And you see that over and over again. It's like, hey, just put your phone down. All of a sudden, no accidents.
Yeah. Crazy how that works, right?
Right? Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, you guys are very solution oriented. You're kind of big on the safety, the getting, better habits and making sure things are done the right way. And you've worked, much closer with our partnership team on getting this integration going. But I'm just would love to hear from you, what made you guys want to partner with Whip Around? What did you see in the software that you thought the two systems would work so well together?
Yeah. So you guys offer a very nice DVIR and maintenance system. And obviously, you have kind of a similar ethos where it's like customer first, treating them right. Um, and so that just it resonated with us, and we obviously have mutual customers. So we thought seems like a great idea where we can benefit our customers, improve their have something embedded that they can use, and that's what got us excited about this.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. I always love when everything just works together, as that one ecosystem in one system just makes everyone life a little bit easier, just have that efficiency across the board. So, with everything that you guys have going on, is there anything that you're, without divulging any secrets, very
Mm.
excited for, either just in the industry as a whole or that you guys are working on this year?
Yeah, so one of the things that we're working on is BLE tags. So they're like small beacons, super tiny, can be very discreet. You can put them on equipment, lawnmowers, a bunch of stuff that maybe couldn't be tracked before. And you'll know if it leaves a job site, um, where it is, stuff like that. So that's something that we're very excited about that's coming this year. Um, and another thing that I would say honestly is just our AI dash cameras. There's a lot of like AI stuff that we're adding. Um, Everything around, smoking, fatigue driving, tailgating, lane swerving. That's all coming that I feel like is going to be just better for our customers.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly, AI think is taking over, and I feel like if you're
Yeah.
not up on there, kind of get left in the smoke a little bit. I think drivers I've actually heard a lot of conversations with some drivers, and I think it might be some of the more old school folks that are almost hesitant when it comes to AI kind of coming into some of the technology, but I think it's actually going to make folks feel a lot better, a lot safer. I mean, it's, just the efficiency is just going to keep going through the roof. So I'm very excited
Yeah.
to, see what you guys are doing, especially when it comes to the cameras. I think there's always kind of like a two-sided thought of, well, why are you doing more cameras? You're just trying to catch me do something. And I always try to flip the script for folks where it's like, well, actually, and a lot of times this is going to kind of, cover your butt, a little CYA action. And I feel like everyone can
Yeah.
use a little bit of that on the road because I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's not even the trucks on the road. It's all these little cars. I'm in the Carolinas, and I mean, I'm sorry if anyone Carolinians get offended, but nobody could drive here. It's all the transplants. So, so I actually want to get a dash cam.
That's so funny. Yeah, and I mean, it from that perspective, when drivers are like, "Oh no, I don't want to be on video, and I don't want them to see how I drive, or you're trying to catch me, or whatever." There's also the ability just to go road facing, and
Mhm.
even that is a huge tool to exonerate people from, the person that makes a left turn or goes through a red light or swerves in front of you. I mean, the videos are crazy that we see. We had someone just pull right in front of a truck at a red light and then continue driving into them. And you're like, "Okay, if there was no camera, it might be like, oh, whose fault is it? Oh, this is a company vehicle. Obviously, it's their fault." So it's meant to save companies money, and that's what it's for. Like, we're not there to just catch somebody and be like, "That's what you were doing. Oh." It's to save lots of money in claims. So,
Yeah.
anyways, hopefully that helps too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, so, anyone else who's listening, they're interested in learning more about, one step GPS and, the integration, where can they find out, more information about you guys?
Yeah, so best place is onestepgps.com. That's our website. You can obviously find our phone number there. You could chat with us if you have questions. There's a bunch of resources there that you could find out. Then, obviously, if you don't have GPS tracking, the best way to find out about the benefits is honestly just to try it. And we have a 100-day money back guarantee, which basically means that sign up for the service. If you don't see the value, if you're not happy, honestly, if you just don't like the fact that our platform has a map on it. Like, it doesn't matter. You just you send us back the equipment, we pay for the shipping, and you get all of your money back. So it's literally zero risk for someone to try it out. And it pays for itself in many, many, many ways, in more ways than one.
Yeah. Well, you heard it here, folks. Definitely make sure to check it out. And if you are currently using Whip Around, you'll get so many benefits out of this type of integration. As we mentioned earlier, being able to track all of your fault codes and your defects all in one spot, being able to generate work orders from them directly and not having them missed in the dust, knowing when vehicles are moving out of compliance because someone hadn't done your inspection trip yet. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. So I'm so excited to be partnering with you guys for, obviously more to come as we continue advancing our partnership. And thank you so much, Adam, for joining me today on SafeTay Talks. It's been a great time. Heard some really good stories today.
Absolutely very happy to be here. And thanks for having me.
We'll catch you guys next month. Thank you so much.